There we go. Hi, Semiu. How's it going?
Hiya. Okay.
So, if I remember correctly, you were a doctor, a lecturer, and researcher at. Oh my lord! I've forgotten the university. I was reading this 5 minutes ago.
Aston University, and I'm not yet a doctor. Still have a few months to go, I think, if I'm lucky.
If you're lucky. Oh, all these years of research.
I know.
Hard work. So, what is it you're you're going to be talking today, and I actually have your slides. Here we go. Are you all ready to give your talk?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, which means if I can see it, so can everybody else. So, please, sir, hit it. Enjoy in educating us.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So, good evening, everyone. I think I've got you for about 20 minutes or so. And in that period, we'll be talking about BullStop, which, as was earlier alluded to, is something I have developed as part of my research, looking into cyberbullying, into ways in which you can detect cyberbullying online, and also not just detecting it, doing something about it, preventing it. Just a little background about myself. I'm actually doing research part-time. So I've actually been doing this research for 7 years. And in that period, I had a baby that is now, 7 years old. So time's flies. But my day job is as an architect. I'm a cloud architect. I specialize in IoT, machine learning, and big data. And I put blockchain there, but I'm mostly an anti-blockchain type person, really. PhD researcher at Aston University. My research interest, and this will become a little bit clearer as we go through the talks, is around artificial intelligence, social media, and HCI, which deals with how you design interfaces for different type of people. In a previous life or a future life, I used to make short movies, films. I hardly get the time to do that anymore. And I've actually written some novella under a pseudonym, which I'm not sharing, just so you don't get an idea how bad they were, what I've written. And I think that's probably my real full-time job is as a driver and an entertainer for my family, which I've got my order wrong. That should actually come first. So what I've got you here, that's an agenda sort of. I'll try to stick to that as much as I can, but we'll see what it takes us. I'll give you a very quick whoosh through BullStop. We'll say the 5 minutes intro, might be more. We'll look at something called participatory design, deep learning, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence, why the interest in cyberbullying and some of the challenges I faced in the research and also developing this app. And what comes next? What am I going to do next with this app? So BullStop is, well, essentially it's an app. I suppose it's more than an app, but it's easier to think of it as an app. And the whole idea is it's designed to help. It's primarily designed for young people, but it can be used by anybody really, to help them manage their social media account and protect them from cyberbullying. And the way it does this is, they download the app and then they're able to connect their social media account to the app, and it will then regularly check their messages, post, comment, and the likes. And it then uses an AI model to analyze the message and then try to determine if there's offensive content in there, somebody's trying to bully them, and what type of bullying it is. And then you can then take actions on that. Now, this is based on, like I said, my research with the Aston University. And I've kind of done some bullets on what, if in a 4 bullet point of what BullStop really is. So it doesn't only just analyze the message that you're receiving, it also looks at what the person is sending as well. So you analyze it both way. It uses a deep learning based AI, and I'll talk briefly about deep learning and what different that makes. But essentially, the AI model understand written language, so you understand the context of the language. It's actually designed to work with multiple social networks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when in the last couple of slides around the challenges I faced. And obviously, because of my background, I've tried to leverage things like cloud technology, containerization, to allow it to scale. Because one of the things I discovered early on in my research was some of the existing work that's been done in this space cannot cope with, with being deployed into, say, Twitter, for example, because just the sheer volume of data I need to process. So that's kind of the things that factor in doing this. A very, very, very high level overview of the system. So like I said, you've got a mobile app, and essentially the app is just an interface, really, just a way for you to interact with a much larger and bigger system. And that mobile app, it's currently available on the Google Play Store for now. You could download it and install it on your phone. And it's as part of the installation or the configuration process, you will connect that to your social media account. In this case, Twitter is the one that's currently supported. And then it would regularly, I think, every 2 minutes at the moment. I keep changing that, but I think the last time was 2 minutes. It will pull data from Twitter. So any DMs or private message that have been sent to you, or new follower, or things like that, it will pull that in on a schedule. It sends it out to a queuing system in the cloud. You'll also notice that it's also got a webhook. So essentially, there are two ways in which it tries to get this data. The reason being, with Twitter, you can also get Twitter to send notifications. So when a new message is received, you can send a notification, or you've got a new follower. Now, the reason I've got two ways to get data is if anyone does work with the Twitter notification system, you know that it's actually not reliable, and it wasn't designed to be so. They don't actually claim for it to be reliable. So you might get a notification for a message that you've received maybe an hour later, or it might be a minute later, or it might be a few seconds later. It's just there's no guarantee. So I had to find another mechanism to be able to. So that's one of the challenges faced together. But I've got those two ways in there, and they'll both go into the message queue. And then from that queue, there's a module I call an abuse detection module. So essentially, this just houses the AI model that then it picks up the message of the queue, and then it will analyze that and then sends it to something I've called the mashallah, for want of a better name. And as that kind of implied, that does stuff. So based on the content of that message, as well as your settings in the app. So if you say, I have a very, very low threshold for, I don't know, festive cocktail, pretty much most of what anybody sends to me offends me, then you can, there's like a slider which you can use to configure that in the app, and it will pretty much delete any message that you receive that that's only slightly offensive. It will get rid of that. And then you can also do things like telling it to block people, so you can block people automatically, either immediately, or you might want to give them, I don't know, after 3 or 4 offensive message. So that's what the mashallah does. But that's a very high level overview, but it kind of gives you an idea. So that then brings us into what I call PD, which is participatory design. Now, this is probably something anyone that's done front-end development or UX work will probably be familiar with in different phases or in different stage, or or under different guises. But this is a more theoretical and probably a more involved way of doing things. And the reason I've gone down this route is just looking at some of the existing stuff in there. If you, I don't know if any of you have, if you interact with academics quite a bit, you will notice that their UX is probably not one of their strongest points. And so we looking at some of the existing work that have been done previously, they've done some fantastic work. They've got some amazing, models that can actually detect various forms of bullying. But actually, the interface is not appealing. So subsequently, nobody's ever going to use that. And part of the reason is because they've just sat in a room and developed this interface. So the whole idea behind this is to actually go out to engage with the stakeholder. And by stakeholders, we're talking about young people, students that actually have a lot of experience with either bullying or using social media. It's parents, it's even law enforcement. Had to get some law enforcement cybercrime officers involved, and so getting casting your network to find all different types of people that would have a stake in this app, and getting them together, and that creates some interesting discussion. So for example, typically all the parents said, yes, when you're designing this app, anytime my child gets an offensive message or is being bullied, I want you to send me a copy of that message. I want to be notified immediately. And the young people there, they were like, no, if you put that into the app, there's no way I'm ever going to use that, because why would I want my mom or my dad to see everything that somebody's sending to me? So you now get all this contrasting view, and it's a more holistic way of doing things. So of course, in this instance, we decided to go with what the young people wanted, because primarily this is an app designed for them to be able to use. So yeah, so that's part of the process, and this was primarily just to design the interface. And now looking into deep learning, if you've ever had, I don't know, even a small interest in artificial intelligence, you would have come across this term, deep learning. And I suppose AI is fashionable now, so you pretty much come across it very often. Now, deep learning is actually not new. It's been around, like, probably since the late 80s, and it's really based around creating an AI model called neural networks, just based on the way the human brain works. Now, then, because of the amount of mathematical competition that was going on, there was so much calculation that this deep learning models need to do. It was just very expensive then in the 80s and 90s to be able to develop really effective network. You need to make very big network to be able to do that, and it was just very cost prohibitive. So it kind of faded away. But more recently, because of it's so much cheaper to create computers now, it's then GPUs, graphic processing unit, was a big step in making deep learning more viable. And your GPU is essentially your graphics card on your computer. So, and while they were designed for things like computer games, what they were actually doing in the background of those computer games is doing a lot of maths. So some very clever people thought, why don't we just try and use this GPUs to do some of this calculation? And that was how deep learning kind of got a second lease on life and became really popular now. And they've been able to actually push what is possible in artificial intelligence. Now, I've got a tiny little graph in there in the bottom of that slide, and that's just giving you an idea. So your traditional machine learning algorithms, you can keep pushing in data into it. The more data you give them, the more they learn, and they keep improving and improving. But up to a point, they kind of plateau out because they just can't learn anymore. It's just learn what it can learn. So your performance start degrading or not improving. You might even stop learning and start de-learning. Whereas with deep learning models, they can keep learning. And part of that also because of the architecture. So just like human beings learn, so you learn to forget things, which is actually crucial to the way you learn. So it's very important for you to be able to forget certain things. So your brain decides, oh no, this details is not as important as that detail. So for example, you might remember the address of where you live 10 or 15 years ago, but you might not remember the color of your living room because in the general scheme of things, that's no longer important. But the address might still be important. The postcode might still be important because you might be using it in forms. So that's kind of how this neural network and deep learning works. So they learn from a lot and then decide what to forget and just keep the bits that contribute to the additional knowledge. Anyway, I can probably talk for, I don't know, a whole day on that. So why did I get into cyberbullying, into researching cyberbullying? Now, when I started my research back in 2013, I'm actually one of the people that just doesn't, I don't see the big deal in cyberbullying. Growing up, I guess that's probably a factor of my age and background. But, growing up, bullying was kind of, you just feel like physical bullying was part of life. You just get through it, find a way to, it's kind of like a prison yard that find a way to fight and beat, the biggest lad or the people bullying you, and then just save yourself and get out of it. So I was like, well, that's not a big deal. So when I started my research, I was actually more interested. I was looking to do research in what we call recommender engines, so recommender system. This is something we interact with every day. Netflix, every time you go into a Netflix homepage, there's a recommender engine in effect that's trying to work out what you may want to see. So that's what my initial interest was. But along the course of that research, I read about a few young people that have been severely affected by this, and some of them actually tragically took their own life, and which kind of took me off on a tangent that got me onto this point, that got me interested in cyberbullying. Hopefully somebody will tell me if I'm where my time, if I'm going now, if I'm spending too much time anyway. But anyway, I got into that, and that's how I decided, from just looking at the existing research and how much this can affect some of these young people, because bear in mind that a lot of these young people grew up with the internet. So this is their way of life. This is all they know. They've always had the internet. They're always used to it. They've always had to interact with people online. So the effect on them is quite significant. It's very, very, it's quite a big deal for them. And because of that, I think, it's now a big deal for everybody because, as parents, it's something that you may have to deal with. And just to put it in context, as part of this, I was interviewing young people just here in Birmingham. And within, I think, maybe I've done 12 or 13 interviews. And within that, I've spoken to a young person whose close friend committed suicide over cyberbullying. 2 that have actually had to be hospitalized because of the severe trauma they went through. And another one that she and her friend actually went to attack the person bullying them and put them in coma. So that's like 4 very, very severe, 1 fatality in just 12 interviews right here in Birmingham. So that's quite scary. So it's quite a lot more prevalent than you would think, and hence why I'm deeply invested in this. So in talking about the challenges, I'll probably try and dive a little bit more deeper into the technical issues, the technicality of this. So one of the biggest initial problems I faced was around 2018. This was probably after the Cambridge analytical issue with Facebook, allowing this company to kind of harvest people's data off their platform. And Facebook response to that was to just pretty much lock down their APIs. And since Facebook on Instagram, that was the same thing that happened. And that was like I probably spent a month just staring at the wall, not sure what to do next, because primarily I started out designing the app to work with Facebook and Instagram, because those were the key, a lot of the young people that I spoke to, those were the media they were using, social media they were using, Instagram particularly. So it was designed around that. So when that happened, that was quite, the app could not work in the way I needed it to work. So I had to maybe move a little bit sideways, and that's why I looked into Twitter, which thankfully was still open, and it was allowed, and the API was not locked down. So I said, okay, I might have to use Twitter instead. And then that's why, you know, the app in its current version works with Twitter. So, you know, that was one of the key challenge in there. Another probably technical one was, you know, further down is with Google Play. I'm not an Android developer. I learned Android just to be able to do this. I actually tried hiring a few developers to do some of the work for me, but I wasn't really too happy with the output, so I had to learn Android and Java, and, you know, learn how to develop an Android app off the back of that. And when it was time to submit the app, it was just Google's policy, app policy, and permission. It was just a minefield, and I just kept going around the circle, just trying to get this approved. And unfortunately, they don't actually tell you which of the permission. But basically, if you wanted to be able to manage text messages, so in which case I wanted to be able to, so I can delete offensive text messages and block phone contact. Google wants, well, you have to be the messaging, you know, a messaging app. So eventually I had to remove that, disable that functionality in the app just to get it approved, because, you know, I was on a schedule with my PhD, but I'm revisiting that, so it's something as part of the next steps, you know, that I'll put back into the app. Yeah, working with school, I think Hollywood, there's a saying in Hollywood that never work with children and animals, and I think the same probably goes for research, which is why there's very few work of this sort, because it's just extremely difficult doing research with young people. Not because they're young, but there's just a whole lot of ethical issues that you need to be aware of, and particularly on such a sensitive topic such as cyberbullying. So you could be interviewing or talking to, you know, a young person that previously been bullied or they've had very severe, very bad experience, and you could end up, you know, re-traumatizing them by dredging up some of these memories which they might have suppressed. So that there was some significant concern, you know, from the university around that. So even when I was doing the interview, I actually had to have like a guidance counselor. In some cases, I had a psychologist to accompany me just to make sure that we avoid those issues. And then learning, you know, in order to train, and this is the way all AI works, you know, in order to be able to train an AI model, you need to find examples. And in this case, this was an example of bullying, offensive messages. So I had to, currently the model is trained on, I think, 63,000 tweets, offensive tweets. And yeah, I'm not really, for somebody that spent a lot of time researching social media, I'm not actually that much of a social media person, but let's just say the stuff on Twitter, especially the offensive stuff on Twitter, it's just, yeah. I actually had, because I had to hire people to do some of the labeling. So basically they need to read a tweet and then decide, is this offensive? What type of bullying is it? Is it just using profanity and such and such? And a few times, some of these people actually quit on me, and they were just like, yeah, I can't read this anymore. You know, it's just vile stuff. So yeah, so there's a lot of issues around that. What's next? So I think BullStop, the app's been running for a couple of months now, which is good, and I've been getting some engagement from people. And part of that's actually it's influencing or shaping what the next step should be. I think definitely a lot of people still would like things like Instagram and Facebook because there's such big platform for various people. So I've opened up conversation with them to see what's possible. I mean, I might not be able to get everything that I need them to do, but I think that there's some movement in that regard with regards to maybe getting access to platform, just being able to do certain things. YouTube, for some reason, actually seems to be quite popular. I've got a lot of people talking about integrating YouTube and TikTok and things like that into the app. So those are part of things I need to look at. Scaling it out, it's actually quite expensive to run a cloud platform, despite what any cloud platform provider will tell you. So, and my PhD, my research is actually self-funded. So I need to come up with a structure around the app on how to pay, how that pays for itself, or maybe get some funding from somewhere to be able to push that to the next level. So yeah, a lot of plans and stuff to do, but I think, yeah, the future looks good for BullStop, I hope. Mike, have I used up all my time? Can I take questions?
Well, if that's the end of your talk, we can start asking questions. Yes.
Okay, cool.
I even put a banner thing up so that people know that now you can ask questions. And we actually have some in the crowd. So one we have from Stefan Gudov. Have you been able to distribute this outside of the Play Store, i.e. alternative app stores, as an APK, etc.?
Not yet, but it can. I mean, it's available as an APK. I just didn't share it. Primarily, it was more of an issue of perception. And so, if you're asking people to authorize an app to be able to review their Twitter and Facebook and the likes, we just felt that if they have to download an APK, people might be a bit not so sure about that. Whereas if it's on the App Store, it makes people feel a little bit, gives them a better feeling. So yeah, but it is available as an APK, and yes, I'll probably think of pushing it out to some of the other, like the Samsung or even the Amazon. I actually thought about moving to Amazon at one point when I was having so much trouble with Google. So yeah. But yeah, it's available as an APK as well. I could, if people want, I could share that. But yeah.
Okay. We have another one from Steve Love going, do you have links for any publications? Would you like to point out where people can find said publications?
Yeah, so there is some earlier work I've done around the background cyberbullying and approaches. I think there's a link on my LinkedIn page to that, but I can share that in the comments or in the channel, a link to that. I've got maybe a few other papers that maybe in the process of being published in the next few months or so. The COVID fortunately affected so many things. So the whole bunch of papers that was written and submitted earlier on this year, all of those conferences have been moved to next year, which then means those papers are kind of in limbo. But I suppose I can share some preprint versions of them. But yeah, I would, I guess when other people are talking, I'll try to put those in the comment section.
That would be wonderful. He also often offered to volunteer somebody for reading your thesis, just as an FYI. And we have another question here, which I apologize if I'm going to butcher the name, from Haida Al Delphi, which is, I am just wondering whether you're considering keeping it platform agnostic and maybe licensing technology to social media providers.
To me, that would be the ultimate aim, to be honest, because the whole idea initially was to actually have it available as an API, and then you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that will still be the way to go, obviously, because which is why I just went with Android. I just needed a means to deliver this out to the market and to people and to do some testing. So yes, all the functionality are implemented via APIs. The app is just talking to a whole bunch of API. So that's absolutely correct. That will be part of the plan. Will be to also make it available as an API, because you can then do all sorts with it, even bring it into the workplace because you could use it. In terms of making it available to the social media platform, yes, but a lot of them are also doing works in that regard. But like I said, part of I think a big problem, and it would be nice if to actually collaborate with them because they've clearly got a lot more resources than I can do. So if the current model is based on, say, 62,000 tweets, imagine if, I'm able to get 1 million tweets, that would just improve, the accuracy of the model and what it can do. And with people like Facebook or Twitter, that is possible. With spoiled me getting, the time and money to be able to label 1 million tweets or post on Instagram, or it's just impossible. So yes, it will be available as an API. Definitely, that's part of the next step. Like I said, I think the discussion with the university is to maybe spin out a startup around this, and I guess the API will be one of the products from that startup. So yeah.
Okay. It's interesting, and it's actually really, really nice to see that a project which is like this actually having wings to it and the opportunity to grow. So, thank you very much, Semiu. Have you got any closing remarks you'd like to share before you start going to hunt for your papers?
I think it probably just, I don't want to sound preachy, but it's just around cyberbullying. Like I said, I was very, very skeptical before I got into this, into doing this research. But, it is serious. It's not something that's just a fad. It's really, really serious. And it's something that we need to take a lot more serious. And I think, thankfully, we're having a talk from mine later on. I mean, they will tell you that, mental health is quite a serious thing, and this affects, mental health of, young people. You've seen young people as young as 9, 7, 8, not wanting to go back to school just because of cyberbullying. So yeah, it's really, really, and the more we can get people to talk about this, or to be willing to talk with their children, or even school teachers about this, because the better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And you're right, it is a serious subject.